A Ghostly Haunting in Grenhaven, chapters 24 and 25. Chapter 24. No, I don't think I'm dead, I thought. If I was dead, I probably wouldn't be able to move my arms and legs. I held my hands out in front of my face, inspecting my fingers and my palms. It looked about as normal as ever. But then again, I'd never been dead before. I had no idea what it felt like. Gradually, I became aware of other things in my surroundings. Murky forms and shapes began to appear, and it was then that I realized that not only were they moving, but I was moving too. I was drifting in this strange realm, moving about by some unseen and unfelt breeze. Quinn? I turned to look at one of the forms that was drifting toward me. Angela, is that you? Dumb question. Of course it was her. I recognized her voice. She was drifting closer to me on a collision course. Thankfully, we were both moving slowly, and we both reached out our arms to stop each other from colliding. I grabbed hold of her arms just above her elbows, and she gripped my forearms. The terror in her eyes was unlike anything I had ever seen. Angela isn't one to get scared easily, but what had happened to us and what was currently happening to us was something she and I had never experienced before. I'm sure that my face depicted the horror I was feeling as well. Quinn! Angela! Dad, I shouted back, where are you? I can't see you. I'm over here, Dad replied. I think I can see you too, and I think I'm moving closer, but there are a lot of other things out here too. Dad was right. Hanging in the misty, murky darkness were other entities, and I suspected that they were ghosts. Thankfully, none of them were moving close. None of them seemed to be moving in our direction. And Dad was drifting closer and closer, but on his current course, he was going to miss us. It was like being an astronaut in outer space. Dad was going to pass by us just a few inches out of our reach. There was nothing we could do. Unless... I have an idea, I said. Quick, when Dad is about to drift by, I'm going to put my boots on your leg and try to push myself out to Dad. With any luck, I'll be able to grab his hand. But what if you push me away? Angela asked. You'll need to grab my boots to make sure that doesn't happen. Do it, now. I had run out of time, and I couldn't explain anymore, and I wasn't going to simply hang in empty space and watch my dad drift by. Still holding Angela's arms, I drew my legs up and placed the soles of my boots on Angela's thighs, just above her knees. I pushed, and she let go of my forearms as I launched, reaching out towards Dad, who already had a free hand extended. Got you, Dad exclaimed, and in the same instant I felt the reassuring grip of Angela's hands on my legs, just above my boots. Hang on, I said to her. Without much difficulty, the three of us were able to pull ourselves together into a tight knot. That was close, Dad said. That was good thinking, Quinn. Are we dead? Angela asked. I was wondering the same thing, I replied, but I don't think so. I think we're in some parallel world, Dad said. Scientists have theorized about this for years, but there's never been any proof or evidence. What's a parallel world? Angela asked. It's a world that exists in the same space in which our world exists, Dad said, only in a different time. At least that's what the theory is. That sounds crazy, I said. Maybe so, Dad said, but that's the only explanation I've got. For some reason, this house must be some sort of portal, some sort of doorway into this realm. Angela looked puzzled. But how can we exist in the same space in a different time, she asked. That doesn't make any sense. Dad shook his head. Like I said, he continued, it's only a theory. None of it's proven. The question is, I said, how do we get out of here so we can go home? As if in response to my question, our attention was drawn to a large, dark form that was drifting toward us. This figure grew in size as it came closer, and if it didn't stop, I was certain that it was going to hit us. Or worse. But as it came closer, we could make out the features of a man. His form and features were distorted, and there was very little muscle on his bones. His eyes were gone, and we could only see the black holes of empty sockets. His mouth was open a tiny bit, exposing rotting, broken teeth. His skin, if you could call it that, had mostly wasted away and fallen off. Some of it, though, still remained like little pieces of crusty, brittle leather. And when he spoke, the great mystery of what was happening was made clear. The puzzle was about to be solved. Our burning questions were about to be answered. But just because we had answers, it didn't mean we were going to make it out alive. Chapter 25. The creature, or whatever it was, spoke. You are not welcome here. His voice was weird and raspy, like he'd swallowed a handful of nails and rocks. For a moment, the three of us said nothing. I was terrified, and I knew Angela was too. Even my dad seemed frightened, and I think there isn't too much that scares him. Well, my dad said, we're not thrilled about being here either. In fact, I'd kind of like to know where we are. You are in the real world, the entity replied in that same gravelly voice. This is the only world there is. However, you have entered into a corner of the world where space and time do not exist. Huh? I thought. How can there be a place where space and time don't exist? We would be happy to be on our way, Dad said, sounding very polite, if you could just be so kind as to show us the way out. I will allow you to leave on one condition, the creature said. He drew even closer, and if I could have taken a step back, I would have, but I couldn't. You must promise to never return. If you do return, you will never be allowed to leave. Perfect, Angela said, and she actually sounded happy. Sounds like a deal to me. Show us the way out of here. But wait, Dad said. I need to know more about this place before we go. Who are you? Where is this place? Although the strange entity didn't have any eyes, I could almost feel his gaze or his soul or his thoughts boring into me. I had an eerie suspicion that he might even be able to read my mind, and that made me uneasy. The man who built this home, he said, worked at a funeral home. His job was to prepare the bodies for burial at a cemetery. For this, he was paid very well. However, when the cemetery became full, he did not want to purchase more land for another cemetery. So instead of burying the coffins in caskets, he brought them here to this house. A dagger of ice sliced down my spine as I remembered the coffin that Angela and I had discovered in the basement. Dad spoke. But he still charged people to have their loved ones buried, he said. The creature nodded slightly. Yes, he was not a good man, and now that he himself has passed on, he is paying dearly for his indiscretions. That's when I realized something. I was sure by now that I wasn't dead, but I was as close to death as I'd ever come. In fact, as crazy as it sounded, I knew that the creatures in front of us were not among the living. Oh, I'm sure that at one time he was, but not now. And then with a growing, ballooning horror, I suspected something else. My suspicion was so strong that I had to ask. I had to know. This guy that you're talking about, I said, is that you? The question seemed to stun him, and I knew right away that I'd asked the wrong question.